Hi, we're going to work through the standards unpacking template with an example of a digital readiness standard from the 3-5 grade band. This process can be applied to the K2 and 6-8 standards by following this model. Now, if you need to pause at any time or need to go back and grab something from a previous activity in this course, please do so. So first, why should we unpack these standards? Well, they're brand new, so increasing our familiarity with the standards is critical to implementing them with fidelity. Also, identifying the depth of knowledge required of these standards will lead to more impactful lesson design. It'll help us create focused learning targets that are actionable, and you can better communicate the required skills not only to your students, but also to community stakeholders. The unpacking process keeps the focus on all students. Now, ideally, we'd be completing this task in collaborative groups. However, given these unprecedented times, we're forced to pivot and work in new ways. So the network highly encourages you to collaborate with your grade level teams, either virtually over the summer or back at your school buildings in the fall, and explore these standards together if at all possible. Okay, let's jump in. So we've chosen a 3-5 standard from the coding and computer programming strand. Use a block code or script from a previous program, decompose into sections and/or subprograms to make it easier to read or more manageable. So the first step is to identify the key concepts and skills. What do students need to know and understand to master this standard? And we can figure that out by looking at the nouns. So block code, script, program, sections, and subprograms are the 5 nouns within this standard. Students are going to need to know what these concepts are if they're going to master the skill. The second step is to identify what do students need to be able to do. And we can do that by looking at the verbs. If you look closely, the verb in this standard is to decompose. Decompose means breaking down a large problem into smaller problems. Computer programmers use this technique all the time as they work on really long lines of code. They take it and chunk it into sections just so it makes it easier to identify bugs or problems. It's called decomposition. Now, the next step in unpacking a standard is to align it to the computational thinking core practices. So when we think of the practices that you explored earlier in this training, which one does it relate to? If you need to pause and grab your K-12 computer science framework, do that. And if you look closely, practice number 3 touches on solving a problem with a computational approach. So defining the problem, breaking it down into parts, and evaluating each part to determine if it's the right solution. So for this specific standard, we are connecting to computational thinking practice number 3, recognizing and defining computational problems. Finally, to focus and guide classroom instruction and assessment, we explore the evidence of student mastery. How will we know that they know it? Here are 2 specific examples for this standard. For the first scenario, students will be able to decompose a computer program into simple steps using block or script code, and they understand the purpose of each line or block of code and are able to explain how it impacts the overall computer program. Another scenario could be if a student is struggling to find where a coding error or programming bug is in their block code, they'll break the code into smaller sections or chunks so that they can test the functionality and identify the problem more quickly and easily. This process really does help us design strong lessons with clear performance assessment and outcomes. Unpacking the standards is a collaborative team sport, so gather your grade level teams virtually, work through these new standards together. Now the next task is for you to download the Word document and complete the unpacking process for a standard within your grade band. Select a standard from the 6th strand, the coding and computer programming strand. That will be the most useful as they're the more specific standards focused on computer science skills. Thank you very much.